Good day. There is a reason to ask a very pertinent question. How will history remember the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky? This question has become necessary because Zelensky somehow has become a part of the fundaments of modern day history. But for some, and indeed for one particular person, an American, Marjorie Taylor Greene, an American congresswoman who has been stringent in criticizing Zelensky and the Ukrainian war. This woman says that Zelensky is a dictator. Will history remember Zelensky as a dictator? That, I don't think, is how the British view him. For them, Zelensky is like Churchill, Winston Churchill, the wartime leader of Britain who was relentless in seeking American support and finally got American support and stood as the last unconquered territory, stood as a critic, stood as an obstacle to the machinations of Hitler, and ultimately got America into the war and won the war against the Germans. For some other people, though, someone like Tucker Carlson, he believes that Zelensky is leading a gang of very corrupt, unchristian, ungodly people who have stripped democracy bare, stripped Ukraine bare of any democratic institutions, cracked down on journalists, closure of media houses, attack on churches. Tucker Carlson has a long list of grievances against the Ukrainian state, and particularly against Zelensky. So different people have different view of Zelensky, but truly, how will history, possibly in a generation or two, look at Zelensky? This is what I want to examine today a little bit. Because let's not forget that people who end up leading sovereigns, countries, if you are a corporate man, you will be prepared before you become the CEO of an organization. If you are a military officer, you probably would have been prepared through several years before you get to being a general. But somehow, sometimes, the path to being the president of a country does not necessarily prepare you to being to taking that role. I have a lot of people I can call to. Some were in politics. It will be expected that a long time in politics will help. But let's not forget that even the most powerful man in the world, President Donald Trump, was a real estate agent who also was moonlighting as an entertainer most times. He was attending the WWF, he has the UFC, he had cameos in many movies, but ultimately he got the prize as a president of America. The same too can be said for Zelensky. Zelensky's whole life was that of an entertainer. Zelensky, we should note, went to college to study law. He did. He has a law degree. But from a very young age, he recognized entertainment, particularly comedy, as his forte. And he co-owned a production company that did a lot of things in making the Ukrainian people happy until he started a comedy show, Servant of the People, that through the strange hands of history led him to running an organization that ultimately became a party that was also the Servant of the People Party. He ran for president and he won an election. And he has been the president of Ukraine for the past 5 years. Good day and welcome to my channel, Ibima Amongo's Perspective on Global Affairs. If you're new to this channel, please subscribe. If you have any comments regarding the opinions I express in this video, please put them in the comment section. Do well to like and share. There was demonstration against President Zelensky today. This is the second day of demonstrations against Zelensky. And the demonstrations are like last time against his actions in approving a speedily put together bill that curbed the authority and the independence of two anti-corruption institutions in America. Did I say America? In Ukraine, NABU and SAFA. So Zelensky has been experiencing something he has not experienced in the past 3 years. People demonstrating against the action he took. He had always dismissed people who took these actions as being agents of Putin. But this time around, these are young university students who are out there and in growing numbers are demonstrating all across cities in Ukraine. This action he took against these organizations have led to disquiet and concern in the camp that supports Zelensky. Ursula von der Leyen has warned that Zelensky's actions risk jeopardizing Ukraine's EU bid. How Ukraine is going to get into the EU, we really don't know, because the Russians have said, as far as they are concerned, the EU has transformed from an economic union to a very unfriendly military institution that has too many Russophobes in them and are intent on doing harm to Russia. The only thing they do these days in the European Union is plot new strategies against Russia. She particularly was worried that there is disrespect now for the rule of law following Kiev's crackdown on anti-corruption agencies. The EU chief has also urged respect for the rule of law and the fight against corruption. We should remember that Ukraine is one of the most corrupt countries in the world. I didn't say it. It's the Transparency International that has, over several reports, put Ukraine as one of the most corrupt countries in Europe, if not the most corrupt country in Europe. And this is a Ukraine that has seen a lot of inflow of military, financial, and every kind of material aid over the past 3 years. Those institutions that are now feeling the weight of Zelensky's actions were the ones that now decided to start digging deep and finding out how these monies have been spent. And they chose to find this action. They took the action of trying to investigate and probe some of Zelensky's close associates. It didn't end well for them. Now they've lost their independence. So now the demonstrations are going on across Ukraine. Zelensky is feeling a reality that has been reserved for many other countries, particularly in France, in Germany. We see this a lot. Even in Poland, we see demonstrations a lot. But now Zelensky is also feeling it. The European Council President, Antonio Costa, also voiced concern about events in Ukraine. Because it is not every day that the Europeans have a reason to complain against Ukraine. Nobody has focused European Union and brought them into a common agenda more than Zelensky. Zelensky is welcomed in all the institutions of the European Union, be it in Belgium, in Brussels, or in Strasbourg. He is welcomed and received as a hero anytime. But this is action that he took has led to criticism even from the European Council President, Antonio Costa. And all the while that this demonstration is going on, Zelensky is also trying to do something that should please the Americans, because let's not forget, the Europeans may have the wherewithal they have the backing and they give complete and total backing to the Ukrainian cause. But somehow it sounds shallow when there's no America to fill the void in monetary support and in material and military support. America forms and constitutes, I can dare say, I can go ahead and conjecture that 80% of all the weight that is throwing support to Ukraine may just be borne by the Americans. And now that Donald Trump is finding his way to move out of supporting the Ukrainians, the Europeans are finding it a little bit worrisome, particularly the British, who have always been like the jackals. The British are very good at one thing. We should never take that away from them. The British are like the jackals. If you know the savannah of Africa, you know the role the jackal plays. The jackal is the man who alerts everybody, every other predator, that there's a prey here to come and kill. The British will alert the Americans to the need to take part in a war that they benefit in, and they're always a supporter because both of them share common interests in having huge financialized institutions. So they have an interest in defeating countries, particularly those that are rich in resources, so that they can benefit from it. It happened in Iraq, it happened in Syria, it happened in Libya, and it has happened in many other theaters of war. The British are just one step behind the Americans. In fact, most times they invite them to come partake and instigate them and wheedle them until the Americans fall for it. If there's any country that has pushed America to war more than the British, it probably is the Israelis. So we know that without America, they just can't stand it. And it is for that reason that they continue to seek America's support. And America's support is not going anywhere. It's not going away. Despite everything that Donald Trump is doing to extricate himself from the Ukrainian reality, people like Senator Lindsey Graham and Senator Richard Blumenthal are there to continue their unwavering support for Zelensky and the Ukrainian cause, no matter what Majority Taylor Greene may say. The complexion of the American Congress is very, very yellow, I can tell you that. It is very yellow because there's a large support for Ukraine, bipartisan. Ukraine is enjoying a lot of support. And you will even say that President Trump is an outlier. He's just the one person who is trying to be a realist, even though he may have his own personal agenda. I will repeat and I will restate. Because when I say this, that President Trump has an agenda of revenge against the Ukrainians, he's not sold onto this Ukrainian project, and nothing will make him do it because we forget that he's still a human being. And there's no person who captures the human story, whether it's among kings, whether it is among paupers, or even whether it is among young lovers, more than William Shakespeare. William Shakespeare has, through his popularity and through his plays, showed us that pauper, king, and whoever it is still has a human element to him, and that's why those stories sold. The harm that the Ukrainians did to Trump's first presidency that led to his impeachment is something that is not going to go away. I reiterate it, and it is that has made him to be an outlier. He's not buying into this Ukrainian project, and he will not support them, no matter what Senator Lindsey Graham and Richard Blumenthal do. Richard Blumenthal and Lindsey Graham, we should know, are the ones who have been staunch supporters in the Congress. They were the ones who co-sponsored bills like the Stand with Ukraine Act. And they're also the ones that are putting together the bone-crushing bill that will see they wanted 500% sanctions on countries that support and buy Russian oil. But these days, President Trump has tampered it down to being 100%. We are in that prayer phase where we have 50 days of grace, which I think now is about 35 days, for Russia to make a decision of coming to make peace with the Ukrainians, or the Senate of America, who have already given Senator Lindsey Graham and Richard Blumenthal assurance of 80 votes. They will go through, pass the bill, and put it in Trump's table, and he will have one more thing he can use against the Russians. I know where that bill will end up. In a trash can somewhere in the White House, to be shredded. There's no action that's going to be taken about it. If it can even make the Congress, because there's a very loyal supporter of Trump in that Congress by the name of Mike Johnson. He will do everything to make sure that if Trump doesn't want that bill to go through, it will not see the light of day. But that is not to say that Ukraine and the neocons that support her, and all the Russophobes that support her, all the people who have always had their issues with Russia are going to relent. They won't. Today, there was a third round of meetings to continue negotiations between Russia and Ukraine in Istanbul. And in what I would consider is a wry act or a joke, the Russians did something again, which is considered mischievous. They offered to give 3,000 dead bodies back to the Ukrainians. 3,000 dead bodies will mean that Ukraine will have to find money to pay families of the dead. Already, for the past 6,000 dead Ukrainians that were returned in the first time, after the first two sets of negotiation, they still struggle to pay the families of the departed. So at least there is a third meeting, and this third meeting came out with some outcomes. The Russians were being briefed. Medensky briefed the press and said that the humanitarian component of the meetings continued. They have agreed to exchange their prisoners, I think 1,400 on both sides, and they've also agreed. He proposed that they should have periods of pause so that they can go ahead and pick the dead. The dead is heavy on both sides. There's no saying it. This is a brutal war with new techniques, especially with the role that drones play in this war. We should know that the Russians are not really worried about all the machinations and all the plans and all the designs going on in Europe against her, and even that going on in America. They have been treating winning the war in slow steps. They have come to a point where the war is now a slow burner and a very important part of their economy. They have quarantined one whole section of, they've energized it, and there's production going on all over big cities in Russia to support the war effort. But to still a large extent, the economy of Russia is a civilian economy. In fact, President Putin has said that by next year, he hopes to reduce the component of the Russian economy from 6% of GDP that is supporting the war to something more manageable like 3% or 4%. But even then, we are getting images of very frightening production capacity of the Russians. The other day, a video emerged that showed production of the Geran 2 drones. It was frightening. When the Russians send out this kind of videos, you will think that these are propaganda tools to send fear down the spines of the Ukrainians. Because while Ukrainians have gone underground and are producing drones as a family project in small homes and underground units, the Russians are building industrial units to produce drones, Iskander missiles. They are producing KH-100 missiles. They are producing caliber missiles. They are just producing, even Iskander, even the Oreshnik has gone into production. They are increasing their capacity, and they have said that their diplomacy is being done in the war front. The worry in Kremlin is rising for the rhetoric that is going on in Europe. The rhetoric that has said that by 2027 or even in the next 5 years, there will be war against the Russians. The rhetoric that says, well, some NATO generals are saying they will storm and raid Kaliningrad. The rhetoric that has stimulated increased budgetary allocation to military spending, and the rhetoric that has made a country like Poland to issue out statements that Polish citizens should leave Russia. It seems like the world is coalescing into a very dangerous place, especially for Europe. The European elite has an intent on making this war happen, while the Russians are getting prepared. But they know that as custodians of the world's largest arsenal of nuclear weapons, they feel like the honey badger. I used the honey badger in one other video to describe Iran, but they know, they are assured, possibly like the skunk this time, that nothing you do them will worry them. They have capacity. And rather, they continue to tell the Europeans that they should worry. For the German president or the German chancellor, Metz, he says he's not worried. We know that the Germans are the ones leading the charge now with their control of the European Commission. Ursula von der Leyen is very much at the head of a troop of anti-Russian actions, followed closely by her deputy, Kaja Kallas, former Prime Minister of Estonia. The same thing too, the new Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, has said he is not afraid of the Russians, no matter what capacity they have. He's ready to go headlong in his support for Ukraine in confronting the Russians. So this brings me back to my initial question. How will history remember Ukraine? Zelensky and his presidency of Ukraine for the past 5 years. Zelensky campaigned on with a servant of the People Party that he will bring peace to Ukraine. But in 5 years, 3 of those years has been war. He also has overseen the loss of 4 oblasts. He has overseen the destruction of a large part of his country. But then you can also say that he has made Europe sharply focused in supporting Ukraine and promising Ukraine so many things. He has brought in so much funds and so much money into Ukraine. He has done so much for Ukraine that makes the ultranationalists or the nationalists of Ukraine very happy with him, and they're keeping him there. It is that de jure or that de facto control of Ukraine that has even made him continue to be president when his term has run out for a full year, and for over 3 cycles now, or 4, he has been told to continue under the framework of a martial law. We really would wait for history to unfold, because these days you get the sense that it's slipping away from him. These demonstrations have a color that make it look like the Maidan demonstrations. They may not be there yet, but this thing starts in slow waves, and it is thought that there might be a rehash of the strategies and the methods that led to the removal and the ouster of Yanukovych under the Maidan then. So we really don't know. We're watching it, but people feel that the end for Zelensky as the president is getting close. It's only time that will tell. This is where I end my video for today. If you are new to this channel, please subscribe. If you have any opinions regarding to the views I have expressed in this video, please put them in the comment section. The least you can do is to like and share. Thank you, and see you in my next video.